Hi there, my name is Trish. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you all you need to know about Layer Max. Now, Layer Max controls visibility. Basically, what area is visible and what area you want to hide. I know you're thinking that you can use the eraser tool to show what is visible and what is not. But the problem is that with the eraser tool, it is distractive, meaning that you cannot reverse what you have done. But with Layer Max, even if you make a mistake, you can go back and change it. So the first thing is we're going to reduce the opacity so we can see what is behind the text. And I'm going to create a layer max by clicking on this icon, go back to your background image, and then with your quick selection tool, do a quick select subject. You want to go back to your text layer. You want to make sure that your layer max has been selected. And we're going to pick up our brush tool. You want to make sure that anything you want to hide should be black. So your foreground should be black. And we are just going to show the text, the subject weaving through the text. So we are going to show the B in front and we're going to take the I behind the subject. So I'm going to paint over the I to hide this piece. I'm going to leave the K and I'm going to go to the E and I'm going to erase this portion as well. Oops. You can see that I actually erased a bit of the R. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to reverse my foreground to white, and I'm going to paint in the area that I accidentally painted over. I'm going to toggle back and then paint this area. So if I missed a spot here too. All right, so if I take the opacity of my text all the way up, you can now see that we have the subject weaving through our text. So I'm going to press Ctrl D to deselect, and that is basically it for this one. I want to show you tip number 2. So with tip number 2, let's say that you want to get rid of the background of your subject. We can use the layer max to help us to hide the background and put beneath a new background. So to demonstrate that, basically what we are going to do, before we do anything, I want to create a duplicate of my subject. And I'm going to hide this one. And I'm going to use a quick selection tool. I'm going to select subject, and Photoshop is going to generate an outline of my subject for me. I mean, there are other tutorials where I've done an in-depth of how to really select a subject. But for this tutorial, I'm not going to go into it. I just want to show you how to use your layer max to be able to hide your background. So with this selected for us, I see a little bit more that I need to add. So I'm just going to just quickly draw in this area and then add that. So with our subject selected, let's say I want to change my background. So what you want to do, you want to click on the layer max, and then the layer max will cut off your background for you. And basically you can go ahead, add a new layer, bring that below your subject, and then you can choose, let's say, a blue, any color of your choice. And then with our paint bucket, we can paint that in. So you can see that within a few minutes, you can actually change the background of your subject using the layer max and your quick selection tool. So this will take us to tip number 3. And with tip number 3, I'm going to use the same image. I'm going to turn this off and I'm going to turn on the original image. So for tip number 3, I want to show you the negative mask. So to demonstrate that, let's say you want more light on the subject on one side and the other side you want it more darker. So what you want to do is that with your layer selected, you want to go to your adjustment levels, and we're going to choose curves. And then we're going to take the light up on that. We're going to lift up the curve, and I'm going to collapse this. So now we see that the exposure on the subject is too much. So what we want to do is to create a negative mask of what we have. To do that, you press Control I to invert your layer mask. Now we're going to use our brush to reveal the areas that we want to highlight. So I'm going to increase my brush. You want to make sure that your hardness is at 0. And since we want to reveal, because the inverse is black, to reveal, you use the white. So I'm going to change my foreground to white. Now, to toggle between the foreground and the background, you just press on your keyboard the alphabet Q, and it will just do that for you. So what we are going to do, we're going to pick our brush, and we are just going to gently paint over this area so we get some lightness on our subject. So if I turn this off, you see this is the before and this is the after effect. So you can see this is the before and this is the after. I can do the same thing on the other side. I can have another layer mask. I can put another layer mask on top, the curve adjustment, and I can take this down just like that. And I'm going to collapse that. And then I'm going to invert this as well. And then with my brush, I want to make sure that I paint over this area. And then this is what happens. So you get this effect happening. If you feel that the brightness is too much, you can go to your layer max. If you feel the brightness is too much, we can actually take it down by decreasing the opacity so it's not so strong. So if I group these two and I turn it off, you see that this is the before and now this is the after. So for tip number 4, I want to show you how you can use the layer max to sort of create a gradual gradient effect of your shadow. So we can do it 2 ways. You can use your eraser tool, and then we can just erase the area we don't want. But the problem is that with the eraser tool, it becomes destructive and you can't go back. If I use the layer max on this layer and I use my paintbrush, and let's say I want to just gently erase a portion of it. Let's say I don't like it and I want it back. All I need to do, make sure that I toggle and choose my foreground as white, and I can paint it back in. So the layer max is non-destructive, whereas the eraser is destructive. So let's say that I want this effect, instead of actually painting over, it's much more effective if you use the gradient tool with the layer max. So with this layer max selected, I'm going to go to my gradient tool, and I want to make sure that my foreground and background are black and white, and I'm just going to do that. So you can see that as I draw a diagonal line, you see that my subject begins to fade out further beyond, and the closer the shadow gets to the subject, it is more darker. So this is another technique that you can use the layer max to achieve. If I feel that I don't need this effect anymore and I want my shadow to be all black, all I need to do is right click and then go to delete layer max, and you can completely delete your layer max. But as you can see, your shadow is still intact. It's not destroyed. So this brings us to tip number 5. Let's say you want to create a reflection on your text. There are multiple ways of doing that. You can invert, you can make a copy of your text, flip it down, and then use your eraser tool. But then the other way, which is non-destructive, is using the layer mask. So if you have your text, you want to make a duplicate. And then we're going to go to Edit, Transform, and we're going to choose Vertical. It inverts it for us, and then we're just going to pull this down just like that. And then what we want to do, you want to take down the opacity. But now the thing is, you want your reflection to fade in. So with your layer selected, you click on your layer mask. And now what you want to do, pick your gradient tool, start from this end, and then you just draw a straight line. And now we can even take the opacity down a little bit more. So for tip number 6, if you want to match two images, let's say this image and that image. So what you basically need to do is that you need to put a layer mask on the second image and then press Ctrl I to invert it. And then using your brush with your foreground as white, you can begin to reveal some areas of the layer beneath. So you can be very creative in what you show and what you hide. So I hope all of these tips are going to help you as you use your layer mask versus using the eraser tool where it's destructive and you cannot change what you do. I hope you found this tutorial very helpful and it's something that you are going to use in your creative design. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and also turn on the notification bell for all future uploads. And as always, thanks for watching. I really do appreciate you taking the time to go through my tutorial. Bye!